All right. Hello, hello. I'm very excited for my next guest. His name is Jeff Leaden. This episode is called Hear About Being an Essential Worker. Jeff has worked in the restaurant business for many years as a bartender and server, and now he's going to tell us about this crazy time in the restaurant industry. All right, let's bring him out. Hey,
Hey man, what's up?
good to see you, man.
Absolutely, brother. How you doing?
Good. Yeah, good day today. You mentioned that you were shoveling earlier, so I was doing the same thing. So that was a good way to get up early and kind of have something cool to do.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. Especially on these days where like so much crap is just not happening, like having some kind of motivation to
Oh shoot.
lifesaver, you know?
Yeah, definitely. You pretty much nailed it. You got a Capricorn mug? You're a
Yeah,
Cap.
yeah, yeah. I am. Born Christmas Eve actually. So
Oh, I forgot about that. Any Capricorn facts you have off the top of your head?
uh I mean only to dispel the assumption that all Capricorns are just like money hungry douchebags. Uh, because we get a bad rap for that, where everybody's like, oh yeah, they're just greedy and grubby and money hungry, and it's like, no, Capricorns, we're driven. We want to keep going. We want to do stuff.
Right on.
That
Oh no.
tends to be we become workaholics, you know.
Right, right. All right. You've been lagging a couple times, but I think we'll
Mm,
make it. I think we'll make it good.
okay,
Yeah. So you know what? I might look up your horoscope before the end of this before the end of
totally,
this
dude.
podcast. Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
as a shameless plug, I do use an app called CoStar, CO Star.
Oh,
You plug
cool.
in your information and it gives you. It's kind of nifty.
Right on. Hey man, are you in the best spot? Because I'm worried I'm not going to be able to. You've been lagging a couple
Hmm.
times.
Shit.
I-
Should be. Let me.
Is it one of those rooms where if you just like turn a little bit, you've got full service?
I'm kind of hoping. Let me readjust a little bit, and I'm actually gonna plug the laptop in so that it's not like pulling battery or anything.
Right on. So, Jeff, yeah, before we get started, you are actually our second time capsule episode, um, which means that not,
Excellent.
yeah, yeah. So you're going to be frozen in amber today, and then neither you or I will know exactly where you show up in the lineup for this
Hey,
podcast. Yeah,
I'm excited, man.
so you might have something to say to your future self before this is over. Yeah, and yeah, these are pretty cool. All right, so I was also going to throw in a question about your hobbies, and
Totally.
and then I went onto your Instagram, and you're actually very into your hobbies. You like
Yeah,
rep your hobbies. So do you want to start with that a little bit?
sure thing. So the hobbies that I got into, specifically repped on the Instagram, are all like
Mm.
uh, painting projects and little like dioramas and stuff like that. It all spawned from a game that me and my buddies used
Mm. No.
then, uh, called Warhammer, where it's kind of like the little green army men that you used to play with when you were a kid, except there's like actual rules and shit for it.
Yeah,
Um, but the more I kind of got into the workforce, I really kind of felt like it's important to maintain kind of a connection to your creative side, like it's
yeah,
real easy to get lost in the rat race and in the grind. So
big
the
time.
the kind of sitting down and painting those things is kind of like a decompression for me, and almost like therapeutic in the way to
Yeah,
to kind of spend some time in my own head with myself.
it just hit me like a few days ago. I was like painting. That was always the thing that was gonna like actually relieve my stress and be a cool hobby that I wouldn't try to turn into like some money thing. Like I would have, if I had painted, I would have just painted, and
Yep.
I would have never been like, oh, I'm gonna sell these, like, like
Yeah,
all that
right.
stupid stuff. Oh man, you and I are both writers, so we
Way that
know a
I've
bit
always
about
had it
that.
described to me.
Hmm. No, 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 you go,
Dude,
you go.
absolutely.
Yeah, just any writing project.
But
Oh, I'm
no,
gonna
the
sell this to make $1 million.
it's all good, bro. Dude, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah,
But the thing about like a hobby, the reason I don't really consider writing my hobby is because I would want to do something with it
big
for,
time.
other people and other people consuming that media.
Yeah,
A hobby to me has always been something that you do solely for yourself.
right,
So that's kind of where the painting came in, and then
right on, man.
uh I wanted to get out there on the internet and just like kind of create a space for myself, but also for other people in the hobby as kind of like a positive reinforcement
Yeah,
kind of shtick.
that's really cool. Honestly, like even back in college, we both went to Western Connecticut.
Yep.
It's a school and college in Connecticut, but so I would see you playing, Dungeons and Dragons, and it was like a real like, oh, like people from all walks of life, like any background can play this game, and like, and not even like be, as silly as it sounds, like not even be like the conventional like, not be someone that you would even think would be playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, absolutely, man. I
Yeah,
mean, the way that kind of culture has exploded over the past few years is wild, because I feel like a lot of people still get the mindset of like, oh, you play Dungeons and Dragons, you're this like
yeah,
basement dwelling troll with all your buddies,
yeah,
and it's really not that way. It is just a kind of an expression. The way that I look at stuff like D&D is it's like multiplayer storytelling.
yeah,
So as a writer, that really appealed to me, of just like, oh, I
totally.
can be a part of a collective, and it's almost like,
Yeah, for
a
once.
collaborative process. Yeah, for once.
Just be totally
Oh,
alone for
that I did
hours.
mean to ask you. Is there like a language rule for this project? Because
That's
I realize I just slipped up there.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Like for some reason, I've actually like I swear pretty regularly in real life, but for some reason, I like feel this need to like do it a little less. So I would say just a little less. That's
Fair.
like my own.
No, that's
Yeah, and like
totally
it
fair.
it's not even a hard rule, and like like some people have said like it's almost like people are just like kind of like fitting into the mold perfectly. Like it's just like slightly racy and then never. Yeah, no, it's actually a really interesting thing to think
Skirt
about.
that line.
It's like honestly like interesting
Uh,
to just think about.
oh, absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
it's something that occurred to me, and it kind of plays into what we're planning to talk about today. I've got the mouth of a sailor when I'm just hanging out with my buddies.
Right.
That's what it is. But I do work in a family restaurant
Exactly.
primarily, so it's
Yeah.
like I've got to have a collar on that. So I wasn't
Yeah.
sure what the
Right.
exact line was, or if there was something that I should aim for. But
And then
it's
and then
just flipping
even
that switch
then
is not a problem.
even there, if you break the rule just right, if people are like, "Ah, like, oh my goodness, that
Oh man, you have no
was
idea.
the
It's
that was the perfect joke."
Yep, yep. It's
Yeah,
all about knowing the
definitely.
time and the place, man.
Big time, big time. Yeah, all the time, but definitely. Oh man, yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's do it. Let's get into it. Let's talk about your origin story, how you got started in restaurants.
Absolutely. So I love that you phrased it as an origin story, because it really does kind of feel that way sometimes.
It's a journey.
Um, I was talking to my kitchen manager recently, and I had told him I wish I'd gotten into restaurants earlier in my career, but at the same time,
Hmm.
you gotta, and thinking about like the constructs we put on ourselves with time, it's just, if I had gotten into restaurants right out of high school, if I hadn't gone to, WestCon with you guys, I
Right.
fundamentally wouldn't be the same person that I am. So even though I like retrospectively regret not getting into it sooner, if I
Yeah.
had it, I might feel completely differently about that. So,
Yeah.
we kind of
Oh, fudge.
be when we need to be there is kind of the way I look at it. But yeah, straight out of high school, I went to college, WestCon, which is a standard 4-year university, like you were saying.
Mhm.
And I did that because that's just what you do, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're growing up,
It
all
really
you know
is.
is school, and so
Yeah.
you're like, what do I do now?
More
I guess I'll go to
school.
more school. And I certainly wouldn't say that I hated it. We had a lot of good times. I did
Yeah.
learn quite a bit in the courses I was in, but frankly, as a 18, 19-year-old kid, I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do.
Mhm.
So I was spending money that I didn't have on a degree that I don't even use right now, So I was at WestCon on the 5 or 6 year plan, and then eventually I decided it wasn't working for me, so I dropped out. And my intention
I didn't
was to
know that.
become a bartender. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
uh, my thought process was, all right,
Oh shoot.
well, I'm gonna get in. I'll be a therapist.
You're just lagging again a little bit, but it seems like
Gotcha.
it's going all right. But like, yeah, just every so often we got.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right.
I'll try to be a
Yeah.
little slower. I know I can kind of run at the mouth.
All right.
um,
No, dude, you're doing great.
but
Let's go. You were at being a therapist.
yes, yeah. So my
Oh no. Hey man,
school,
are
it's
you,
not working for me.
here,
Uh,
try putting the computer on the bed or the chair or something, because maybe it's like when you move.
gotcha. That's fair.
Nice. All right. Dope angle too. So
Yeah, right.
we're in good shape. Dude, what is
um,
that behind you there? Is that a dream catcher?
oh, it is actually. So this is a freaking dream catcher that my mom actually picked up for me many years ago.
No way. Oh, you don't have to take it.
It's
Oh,
yeah, it's
nice.
actually like a full owl facade there, so kind of
Oh
nifty
yeah.
shit. But anyways,
One of our guys from WestCon back in the day, his spirit animal was an owl.
no kidding.
Yeah, yeah.
Who is that?
Pete.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I've been thinking about him recently. I got to reach out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's something that the pandemic's kind of done for me, where like it's encouraged me to kind of not necessarily mend fences, but like reach across aisles and kind of touch
Totally.
base with people that I haven't seen in a while.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
but before I get too tangential,
Right. Yeah, that was my bad.
no, it's hey, catching up, man. It's important,
Big
Um,
time.
but so I had left school, and my new dream was bartender, right? Uh, uh, the market was crap.
Yeah.
Um, I went and got a alcohol management certification, which still don't regret. It is good information to have, but
Yeah.
nothing replaces experience.
Right.
So I got so desperate for a job, I picked up a full-time gig at a warehouse working for Scholastic Books.
Right.
So I was moving boxes from point A to point B
Yeah.
and was losing my mind.
Wow. Yeah.
There
I
were
heard you actually got to read for like 30 minutes a day, and I was like, no way.
the
Yeah.
company itself is
Yeah.
really cool, but warehouse work is not something I would wish on my worst enemy.
Yeah.
So the company was
I
great
mean,
because yeah, the first 15 minutes of every shift, you
mm,
sat down and you read any
wow.
random book, a book you brought from home, a book you grabbed out of the warehouse. Like they were big on that, like
Culture. Yeah, reading culture.
see and exactly, yeah.
Mm,
Um, so it was 7 or 8 years ago now that they opened a Red Robin in the
mm,
Danbury Mall.
okay.
And when I saw that listing, I went for it. I was like, they're new, they're going to be looking for help.
Yeah,
I still want to be the bartender, that guy, you know.
definitely,
Um,
definitely.
so with no experience, uh, but again, I was just looking to get into the industry, so I'm like, yeah, definitely, I'll take it. So I made the shift into service, and I have not regretted it since.
Yeah, yeah, and especially where we're at now, what we're dealing with, that's impressive, my dude, because I gotta tell you, I was, like I've had good times working in restaurants before this, but this was like, I was like, what? Like, I would definitely at least be
Man,
more choosy about which restaurant I'm with now for sure.
a-
But
absolutely.
yeah. Um so and I do think that that's cool though. So I might be mixing things up a bit here, but like how did you even have to like kind of question that, or were you just like, oh man, like this is going to be tough for the restaurant industry and like can't wait to get back to work, or was it really like, oh no, like what's going to happen?
So that's that.
Oh man, all right, are you
Too.
with me, man?
When I'm here.
All right, don't touch your computer at all.
Okay,
All
okay.
right, don't, yeah, all right,
um,
you're
but
doing
no,
awesome. I want to hear this stuff.
that was an interesting issue that we ran into once the lockdown first started lifting. I I was losing my mind, if I'm honest with you, man. Like I'm not someone who likes to be idle. Again, that
Mhm.
Capricorn thing, you know.
Right.
So I was talking to my girlfriend's family
Yeah.
during a Zoom call
Mhm.
that we all did to get together, and they're like, "Can
That's
you
cool.
waiting to get back to work?" And I was like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
I cannot wait to get back to work." And they're like, "Aren't you making more money on unemployment?" And I was like, I am almost certainly, because especially because during a pandemic, nobody's going out to a freaking restaurant, you know. So I was
Yeah.
certainly making more money with that added unemployment bonus.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to pull it out. Like it was crazy. Now that said, I totally understand how some people did not want to come back to
So you froze right there. So when you said I was getting ready to pull it out, you mean your hair, right?
what hair I have left. Yes.
All right.
um,
So I'm really liking this one. So like audience, if Jeff lags, it's just worth it. It's worth it. So we're gonna go with it and
hey,
get
I
what we get,
appreciate that.
not get upset. All right, man.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Alrighty.
All right, so you're
Um,
you're ready to pull your hair out.
I was ready to pull my hair out, and so when I finally got it was actually a text message from my general manager about getting back into work, and I
Mhm.
told him to put me on whatever hours you can. I'm happy to come in. I'll wash floors, train me in the kitchen. I don't care.
Wow, awesome.
So
And
I
so
can.
this is which restaurant are you with now?
So I'm with Red Lobster now,
Right.
actually. So still a corporate entity, and
Yeah.
but the way that the team as a whole, from
Yeah.
management to dishwasher, all really tight knit, which
Yeah.
is great to see.
I hear it, man.
I can proudly say that everyone who was on my staff before is still there. We have not laid off anybody, and we're kind of a rarity in that regard, because not every restaurant has been that lucky.
Right. Right on. Very cool. So right, so how long so where's this the Red Lobster at? Which one?
So it's right off exit 8 on 84.
Yeah, I
It's
know that.
actually
Yeah.
just across the street from the Danbury Fair Mall.
That's right. That's right. All right. Very
Yeah, so
cool.
not only did I not go very far from Red Robin, I still have red in the name, you know?
Yeah. You're a red-blooded, seafood loving American.
I am indeed. I am
Yeah.
indeed. But no, it's been a really eye-opening experience, this pandemic, and it's I wouldn't say by any stretch it's been a positive one, but it has been nice to see some of the positivity that's come out of it, you know?
Right, right. I think that's something I think I kind of missed out on because I was being pretty negative when this all first started. Yeah, I wasn't really like shit. I wasn't, like people are putting up like posters that just say like "be kind" like on their lawn. I'm just like whatever, like
Yeah.
so
Oh no, absolutely, man.
yeah,
It's
so
tough. It's
yeah, it's like the person that you're relying on most emotionally suddenly like gives up one day.
yeah.
So
Oh.
and how is it going with the masks? What kind of mask do you wear for restaurant work?
So we provide the single use
Hmm.
God, I don't even know the
The
like
mask.
number. Yeah,
It's like
the
blue.
masks you see everywhere, the blue ones there.
Yeah.
So I went kind of above and beyond. I got a pack of matte black cloth masks that I reuse, I wash and reuse,
Yeah,
just
good
because
call.
I don't like one
Right.
bit. Working a full like 11-hour shift in one of those would be a maddening experience for me.
Yeah.
So I got a couple off of all places, a maternity website that was selling like a 12 pack for $50 and you got a free mask. So it ended up being like less than $5 a mask. It was great. So I just reused those and they're a lot more comfortable for me. Um, but yeah,
Nice.
the restaurant does supply those single use ones if someone doesn't want to buy their own masks.
Yeah, but you're definitely gonna get better tips with the nice black mask. Sure,
Yeah,
right? A little
a
personality.
couple of my servers, yeah, a
Yeah.
few of my servers, and I haven't taken the plunge yet. They got
Yeah.
a masks with the Red Lobster brand on them.
Okay.
So they got the little Red Lobster printed. I think they went through like one of those
Yeah.
custom like T-shirt websites or whatever, just with masks. So
That's kind of
that's a
fun.
nice touch. I will
Yeah.
admit.
I
Yeah,
think I think you should get a black
we're
mask
mandated
with.
to wear these things. We may as well accessorize.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't really done much accessorizing. At some point, I got a Doctor Who magazine. Not magazine. I got a Doctor Who mask, and I got
Hell yeah,
I got a Super Mario's mask, but they just went missing somewhere.
nice.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm like, why did I could that would have been really fun. I'd love the Doctor Who mask was cool too. It was like this nice shade of it was like a light brown kind of and had some symbol on it or something like that.
Oh, cool.
I don't know Doctor Who so
Very
well.
nice.
And then Super
That's
Mario's
fair.
that was awesome. Anyway, so but yeah, you should get one that's like black with like pineapples on it, a little pineapple designs. I feel like that would go over really well.
Okay.
That's just how I feel.
I definitely think so. That it's funny you mentioned that. I don't even know. I'm not sure if you know, but pineapples are like a universal symbol for welcome.
Oh no way.
So like if you ever see yeah, I don't even know why. I have
I
no
didn't
clue
know
why a
that.
pineapple is supposed to be that, but if you see like doorways or gateways with like little pineapple figurines flanking them, it's basically a hey, welcome in. That's like a universal symbol for come on in, you're welcome. Like
No way, man.
so
That's
pineapples would
perfect.
work really well for the service industry.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Awesome. Dude, I would have never known that. Awesome. And so then, we're dealing with the first wave, the second wave, and also, a new virus strain, stuff like that. Are you dealing with
Yep.
changing rules being back at work? Is it like one week it's this,
Uh
next week it's that, like stuff like that?
all almost constantly, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was one of the bigger things to adjust to and coming back in general, because whenever we opened back up fully, like I said, I was champing at the bit. I was just ready to get back in and get some work done.
Mm,
So I came in before they really had like solid rules, because
right.
this has been an absolute madhouse. I'm
Yeah.
sure I'm not the first person to make that assertion. But
Hmm.
so it'd be like one week we'd come in and it's like, oh, wear masks. But gloves are optional. And the next week would be like wear masks and gloves.
You have
Also,
to
you
wear the
can't
gloves.
serve. You have to wear the gloves. And frankly, I don't mess around with this.
No, no.
My sister has a 2-year-old. Both my parents are over 65, so I know
Yeah,
people will look at me and think my my response to that is get bent,
yeah,
because it's not even a matter of like keeping myself safe when I'm at work. It's like I would never forgive myself if I brought this to somebody else, even a random stranger, much less my family and loved ones. So
totally, totally.
I'm insanely cautious, especially at work.
Yeah,
So like I was wearing the gloves even when they were optional, so that didn't affect me. But yeah, now gloves are mandatory, masks are mandatory. Uh, the it came down the pipe from the state of like, if your guests aren't wearing masks, we'll fine you. So now then you had to be real strict about like telling people, hey, put the damn mask on, just
yeah.
deal with it, get to your table, then you can take it off. No serving 9:30, I think, is the cutoff. We do
Currently,
8:30 during the weeks and 9:30 at night. And then it used to be no service after that, but everything else was fine. Now the final round of rules is everyone, my staff and my guests, have to be out of the building by 10 p.m. So previously, and it's a big thing in corporate restaurants for sure, they talk about what you would call the, hey, as long as you're in before I lock my doors, you're my guest for as long as you want to
yeah,
be.
yeah,
Come
totally.
in, hang out, sit down.
Yeah,
So we've never kicked someone out just because they were sitting down, and that can be a
yeah.
practice in patience for sure.
You go back in the
But now
kitchen.
we
You're like,
actively, yeah, oh yeah, oh absolutely. Like I said, a time and a place for everything. Little tangential, but so I'm not only am I a server right now and where I was previously, but I train the newbies who come in when we reach such a time that we will be hiring people, because as you can imagine, that's not happening all that often.
yeah.
But every time I train someone new, I tell them, look, things get frustrating, stress gets high sometimes, I understand.
Hmm.
Just don't scream or curse in front of my guests. The walk-in in the back, it's not that cold and it's almost soundproof. You can walk in there and scream to your heart's content. You can go into the office and complain to the manager and call them an SOB. It's fine. Like I promise they'll take it, and it's far enough away from my guests where they aren't going to hear it. So
Yeah,
do what you got to do. Just do it away from prying eyes is the way that I try to present it to people.
totally. Yeah, right on, man. Good for you. I gotta tell you, you know, I've had times in restaurants where I didn't handle it too well, and there were times where I was like, like felt like pretty professional, pretty good about what I was doing, and other times I was like, man,
Oh
yeah,
no, absolutely, man. It's a tightrope that we walk in this industry, just in
yeah,
general. Because yeah, there's that whole like, oh well, the customer's always right, aren't they? And my response to that is, yeah, absolutely. But I haven't had a customer in 7 years. I have guests, and guests can be mistaken.
that's a
um,
great sort of mental trick, just calling them guests. Yeah, um, that's genius.
yeah, no, absolutely.
Right on, man. So,
No, it's that those little bits of mental acrobatics.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You got those are important. I think for me personally, uh kind of the same deal as with you, like my best time was in sort of a corporate setting doing catering in New York City because like I would
Yep.
literally never see the same person twice, you know. It was actually to the degree where like I
Yeah.
I like when I started working at a restaurant with regular people, they talk to you. They're like, "Oh, what's up? What's happening? Blah blah blah." You're just like, I was literally just like, "What?" Like, I was like, like because I was
Yep.
just so used to dealing with strangers. So this one I wanted to ask about. It might be like a little tiny bit sensitive. I heard that the governor Ned Lamont, he passed an executive order or something. I heard this, right? Who knows what website, but like
Fair.
I heard that he passed an executive order where you could order like a margarita or something in a to-go cup, like alcohol in a to-go cup. And I was wondering how that
Yep.
happened at your restaurant. Was somebody like, you will not believe what we can do right now, like, or
Uh,
or, or
yeah.
was your
Yep.
manager like,
Uh,
just explain
so
because I don't want
we did. Oh yeah,
to.
no,
Yeah.
absolutely. So we took advantage of that when we were closed down.
Hmm.
Closed down. We were still open for takeout,
Hmm.
so that we could still move product.
Hmm.
Because otherwise, I mean, the spirits are not a big issue, and most of the wines are not a big issue.
Hmm.
But the keg in the beer in your kegs, if it sits,
Right.
a total loss.
Yeah. 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 If it sits, it's a
A lot
total
of people
loss.
think you can age all alcohol, but you can't.
No, not beer.
um, so no, beer gets old, and some
Yeah.
wines can't even be aged. There's a whole huge uh, spectrum that you have to
Yeah.
kind of like know about, and the finer minutia.
Big time.
So when we were closed and we were only doing takeout, we allowed people to order cocktails,
Mm.
wine and beer to go in our to-go cups.
Right.
I've had a few instances since we opened back up of people asking if they can take their cocktails to go.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and I have not allowed it.
Yeah.
The reason I haven't allowed it, I went back, I talked to my manager. It's into service. Communication is key. So when someone asked, my response wasn't a flat no. It was, let me go check.
Yeah.
And so I went back to the manager and I kind of, thought processed it with him.
Hmm.
And I was like, look, I don't know how comfortable I am putting a cocktail in a to-go container. I could sell them a bottle of wine. That would be fine because that's sealed.
Yeah.
But I have no verification that they aren't sticking this in their cup holder and drinking it while they're driving.
At that point,
Uh,
it would be hard.
so
Honestly, it's just like, oh, like the straw is in it. Like, I mean, at what, yeah, at some
yeah,
point,
exactly.
honestly, if you just like tape
And
the
that's
top,
nice.
yeah,
So I mean, we could do something like that, and at least that's our due diligence. We've done everything we can to prevent them from doing it. If they get into their car and peel the tape off, that's
yeah,
it's out of our hands.
yeah,
So I have allowed people to buy bottles of wine and take them home,
right,
and that's it. Because again, I can be relatively sure that most people aren't going through the hassle of uncorking it in their
yeah,
car. They're
yeah,
probably wait until they get home.
unless, right.
To my manager, and I unless they got the corkscrew right in their back pocket, yeah.
But that's definitely not
But no,
your. That's not got nothing to do with you.
uh,
Oh
but no,
man.
I mentioned to my manager, I told him flat out, I said, I am not super comfortable myself. How do you feel about this? And he's like, I'm not really a fan of it. I'd say no, and especially if you don't feel okay with it ultimately, and once again, to anybody out there looking to get into the service industry, into bartending, it is a
Hmm.
lot of fun, but there's a lot of responsibility. And the
Yeah.
ultimate rule is if you're uncomfortable with serving someone liquor, don't.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, right on, man. So, and what about the actual like drinking experience, like in the bar? Like, are people still watching the game? Like, how's that going?
So our bar is still mostly not open.
Yeah.
We have a very small bar area. It's frankly, it's my only problem with the restaurant I work in right now. It's the smallest bar area I've ever worked with.
Oh, trust me,
We
they're smaller.
I'm certain there are. But so my previous restaurant, I had 13 beer taps,
Yeah.
15 bar top seats, and 10 tables in the bar area. And that was
Mhm.
great. That's like my perfect sized like bar experience
Big
as
time.
a bartender.
Yeah.
My current bar area is 3 tables,
Hmm.
4 bar stools, and
Yeah.
3 beer taps.
Yeah.
So it is tiny. So we might technically be allowed to have the bar area open, but for us, it's simply not worth it. It's become mostly a to-go area and an occasional employee lounge. Like in the mornings, we'll hang out there while we're waiting for anyone to guests to show up, any tables to come into the restaurant. So our bartenders right now, anytime I work the bar, I'm a glorified to go specialist.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah. At some point, you just want to run like 4 cocktails in a row.
exactly. No, I've
Just the way it is.
greatly been preferring being a server right now because at least I still have
Yeah.
a table section.
Yeah.
I still feel like a restaurant employee and not like a Uber Eats caterer.
Yeah. Yeah. You ever just cut a bunch of limes?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The
Just like waiting and you start cutting limes.
Well, and that's the
Yeah.
killer part of it too is we're so slow in the bar area that
Hmm.
like the killing time prepping like cutting fruit and prepping fruit for stuff. I don't even have any guarantee I'm going to use that fruit. It might just go right into the garbage. It's like, oh, I could cut some. I have all the time in the world. Let me cut some
Yeah.
limes and oranges and pineapples that
Yeah.
are just going to get thrown away tomorrow because we didn't use them. Like,
Yeah. All the
so.
stuff that you just so badly want to do on a busy night. And then,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you can't do it when you're slow. That's the that's that tightrope that we walk, man.
And you're also bartending with a catering company. What was the name of that again? Oh, shoot.
Oh, so the caterer I work with, her name's Lori.
Huh?
She owned a business, not really a sit down, but like a walk in, carry out food business in Bethel, down in the
Mhm.
Danbury area. And she does catering, and the company is technically called Lori's Fine Foods.
Uh,
So I work with her whenever she has jobs for me.
right.
The problem, as you might imagine, is
Yeah.
now with COVID being in full swing, the biggest party anyone's allowed to have is like 10, 15 people maybe.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
you don't hire a bartender to
Nah.
pour wine and beer for 15 people. The
Right.
parties that I would do with her are 80, maybe 40 people. Like 40 might be the lower end of like once
Right.
you hit 40 guests, maybe you hire somebody like me to come and pour drinks. But
Yeah.
anything below that is certainly not worth it. I've had one catering job since we've opened back up from this lockdown.
Yeah.
And it was when the numbers were low. It was supposed to be a party of 40 people. By the time I got there, by the time the date happened, it was 18.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I almost felt bad taking those people's money, but I was also pretty strapped for hours. So hey, you hired me. I'm here to do the job. Uh,
Definitely.
I,
Please, I don't think you should be feeling bad.
no,
Right.
no,
Um,
and honestly, people who hire for like a fine dining caterer,
totally.
they have that money to burn. That was like
Yeah.
they thought nothing. The lady
Yeah.
of the house at the end of the night slipped me $100 as a tip on top of what they were paying me. So that you know,
Excellent.
God
Excellent.
bless kind people, man, for real.
Totally. Totally. What was the party? Like,
So it was an engagement party actually.
knew it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So a young lady and her fiance,
Yeah.
they went to their parents' house, and it was this really really nice little area. The little room they had me set up in was again bigger than my bar area in my restaurant.
Yeah.
So it was kind of nice to just shoot the breeze with them, keep the drinks flowing. Something that I actually really appreciate about the workflow with catering as opposed to the restaurants, because I know you were
Yep.
saying you had a bit of an adjustment issue,
Yeah.
and they are wholly different worlds.
Yeah.
So something that's really nice about catering is that I get paid a livable wage,
Yeah.
let's say.
Yeah.
So Lori, who contracts me technically, I'm on her payroll, but I'm not technically her employee.
Right.
But when she has a job that she outsources to me, I get my pay through her.
Mhm.
She pays me $22 an hour to sling
Nice.
drinks. You'll
Yeah.
never see that in a restaurant. I'll warn everybody right now. Uh, but there's some really awesome byproducts to paying a bartender $20 an hour. And something that I tell people is
Like enthusiasm.
enthusiasm. But
Yeah.
there is also, the lady of the house, the hostess who hired me. She was nice enough to tip me, but
Mhm.
I'm not relying on that tip.
Exactly.
And a
Yeah.
byproduct of that is that if somebody walks up to the table, the countertop where I have my bar set up, and
Right.
they're slurring their words,
Right.
and they're a little, they're on that line, right?
Yeah.
They're where it's like, should I serve them more? Should I not? Should this be their last one? I am more inclined to. I shouldn't say I'm more inclined because I'm that jerk who's going to cut you off in a restaurant just the same, but a person is more inclined to do the right thing, which is not serve that person, because they're not relying on that person leaving them a tip. In a restaurant situation,
Yeah.
you run into this, oh, they've probably had too much, but if I cut them off, they're going to be pissed and they're not going to tip me. And there goes, and on a $100 check, that's $20 that I'm not getting, and I'm not getting paid more than $7 an hour to be here,
Right.
in general. So I'm basically screwing myself out. And there's this very real pressure that gets put on people in the restaurant industry, of do the right thing or do the thing that keeps you, in the green. Um, and
Yeah.
I can certainly comment. I've never. I don't think twice about cutting people off. That said, in the 7 or 8 years that I've been doing this, it's happened twice that I've had to cut someone off.
Right.
So I'm not like, I don't work in, New York City during non-pandemic times where you're getting a
Imagine.
thousand people every night,
Yeah.
and you're really relying on this. I don't. I'm not in. I don't speak for every context, I guess, is what I would say there. But it is, doing the right thing is important when you're bartending, because you're you're the final arbitrator as to whether or not your guest gets home safe.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
and if you take any courses on bartending, if you get any of the certifications for alcohol management, that's the thing that you're going to be taught, is that you're criminally liable if
Mhm.
someone that you're taking care of gets into an accident on the way home and kills themselves or someone else, or even just hurts themselves or someone else. You can
Yeah.
be held liable, and that's an important aspect to think about.
Wow.
Because no, everybody in the service industry, it's great to be part of an experience. It's great to, be part of someone's really good time. But we also want that good time to last, and we want those people coming back. Um, so
Totally, man.
that's kind of where I come down on that whole situation.
Yeah. Just 1 second, man. I set a nap time alarm for the other
Totally.
day, but you nailed it, man. Just A plus. I agree. Yeah, man, that was a great answer.
Eh,
That was I think I'm sure there's a lot of people who when they go to a restaurant, they hope someone cares that much. So right on, man. So dealing with all of this, you've got the restaurant, you've got COVID, you've
yep.
got everything everyone else has to deal with in the day to day. You've got
Yeah.
laundry,
Oh yeah.
like
Oh yeah. Yep.
um, yeah. where do you draw the line between trying to be positive and just wanting things to go back to normal? Does it ever hit
So,
you?
so for me, it might be that I have a weird way to look at things. And I would love if tomorrow somebody snapped their fingers and everything went back to the way it was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Just perfect. Chef's
Oh.
kiss. I'm all for it,
The chef's kiss.
Um, but at the end of the day, I am a realist, and with like you said, we hit first wave, the second wave, we've got mutated waves, more contagious strains.
Yeah.
uh I made peace pretty early on with the fact that I don't know that it'll ever go back to normal.
Right.
So with that in mind, I feel like the positivity is really important. It's a new hurdle for us as a society, but also as an industry to tackle and kind of take on. And as terrible as this past year has been. Everyone in the industry that I talk to, in one way or another, it was the year of reinvention.
Yeah.
We've changed how we do things as an industry. We've changed how we do things as people. I mean, when you contacted me about this podcast, I was like, hell yeah, that's awesome. And
Right.
I don't know exactly where the motivation came for you, where the thought process was, but it's entirely possible that I can think of that you may have had this idea because of COVID and because the lockdown being what it was. So again, it's that you take on whatever, you jump whatever hurdle you can, and you make the opportunities where we're able.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
so I maintain that little bit of positivity, and I am a millennial, but I haven't been letting the existential dread crush me over this. It's going to be what it's going to be, and I have faith that we're gonna push through, and we're gonna make it work on the other side, whether it's returning to normalcy or whether it's just kind of dealing with the new normal.
Totally. I mean, I'll tell you, like the realization process was really like, oh, like the existential dread isn't gonna actually crush me. It's just that existential dread. Like, I can't just like I can't just stand there and hopefully be crushed by existential dread. And then it
No,
was like,
exactly.
yeah. And so like I was, not stubborn about the rules or anything like that. I mean, I followed the rules always,
Yeah,
but like, stubborn about actually adapting to a different era, really.
yeah.
That, um, I was totally the guy. I was like, this is going to be over in a couple weeks. Like,
Oh
yeah,
man, I wish
yeah,
and I have seen a lot of reports from like other places across the globe where they have it. Again, it's not gone, but it's more under control. So I have faith that there will be a time
mhm,
that we will reach, where it's not normal. It's not back to pre-COVID times, but it will be a day where we as a society can adapt and deal with COVID as an issue.
like The Walking
Um,
Dead.
yeah. Zombies ate my neighbor, but hey, life is.
No,
Christ. Oh man.
that's a, I
Let's
don't
hope
know.
not.
That's what I'm talking about, man. That's like the borders taste. Borders, like,
Oh man.
I'm
No,
sure.
I hear you, man. And it might help that I've always kind of had that like gallows humor, so I can joke
Yeah,
about stuff that I probably shouldn't joke
yeah,
about, and at least find some entertainment in what is objectively an absolutely horrible situation that we as a species are dealing with, much less a community.
yeah,
Uh,
man. Yeah, that there's so much that can be said, and this is actually the first podcast where I've really gotten into it, mostly because your line of work really just like
yep.
slams up against this thing. Um, but speaking of eras, let's talk about time for a bit. Like you're in our time capsule episode. we don't
Absolutely,
know
man.
we don't know when this is gonna air, like
I mean, hey, that's something to think about, right? Like, we don't know when this is going to air.
yeah.
This could drop in that like post-COVID, post dealing with COVID era that we're talking about, and people look back at it like, what are these two idiots talking about? Like, oh, it's not that bad.
Yeah,
Uh,
there could be that's a great point, but like even because week to week it can change, and like
yeah,
literally 3 weeks from now a bunch more people could maybe be vaccinated. I don't know, but
I honestly, man, I can't wait.
yeah,
When I'm allowed to get that vaccine, I know a lot of people have concerns and whatnot, but frankly, any little bit of what if is a smaller percentage than even the uh,
yeah,
rate of COVID. So I'm willing to take the that solution over what I've been dealing with for sure.
yeah.
And for what it's worth, as a capsule episode, to all of you somewhere in the future watching this, if I sound like an idiot talking about how stringently I've been dealing with COVID, good for you.
You didn't know.
I love you. Yeah.
You don't know what it's like in
Oh
here in
man.
this time capsule. That's hilarious.
Oh man. I pray that you're looking back at this in a 2020 kind of like, oh well, we got over that. You guys are just freaking out over nothing. I pray. I hope that
Right.
that is the case. Um,
So like, yeah, and like you said, you so deep down, do you actually feel like it's not ever gonna go away forever, or you remain hopeful that it will just go away forever?
so I suppose where I'm at now,
Mm,
where I sit and how I view it right now, I don't think it'll ever go away. I think it's much more likely that
yeah.
we're going to be seeing like yearly COVID vaccines, the way that we vaccinations, the way we do flu shots. You know what I mean? Because it
Okay.
is so as an invisible enemy, this
Yeah.
virus is so aggressive. You
Yeah.
can say what you want about, mortality rates being low or whatever, but the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is the contagious aspect of it is so high
Mm,
that even though those rates are technically low, we're talking about a huge pool of people. Um, so I think the best that we can really hope for is a mitigating factor rather than an elimination factor,
yeah.
where we'll have, hopefully just better and better vaccines as we go,
Yeah.
that will make it even more manageable. And I really hope, like, I will be over the moon
Right.
when we reach that point.
Yeah.
That said, I'm sure that if you talked to people, however many years before the polio vaccine
Yeah.
came out, they would probably have said the same thing. Oh, polio's never going anywhere. Maybe we'll just be able to deal with it. So
Great point.
I would love nothing more than to be
Yeah.
wrong in this arena of
Yeah.
just, oh, COVID's never going anywhere, and then 2 to 5 years down the line, they're like, hey, we eliminated it from the globe. Like, that would be
Right.
great.
Yeah.
And,
Because
I'll happily eat my words at that point.
yeah, right. Well, the other side of it is that no one can eat a bat again, which is like much harder to manage
Yeah.
than
Oh, yeah.
getting everyone the vaccine.
Seriously. And
Yeah.
again, getting everybody on this vaccine train is going to be, I don't envy people in the healthcare industry right now.
No. Yeah. I'm gonna talk to someone in that soup at some point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. So more in the area of fluff though, what were your deep down feelings about time back when it seemed relatively inconsequential? Like things
So
were pretty
it's,
much the same.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think you couldn't have picked a more perfect time than to do, like I said, this time capsule episode where,
Yeah.
during lockdown, man, I lost all concept of time.
Mm-hmm.
I am taking classes right now for hospitality management. I've got my work shifts, so like I have these things where I know,
Yeah.
hey, on Thursdays, I drive out to class at
Yep.
this time. I go into work on, Monday through
Yeah.
Saturday. Like I
Got
had, you
bullet
have
points.
these, yeah, you have these structured, regimented uh, aspects of your life.
Hmm.
So when those were just gone,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was so jarring. And it, time just bled into itself. It stopped meaning anything. I'm
Yeah.
hilariously, I actually fixed my sleep schedule for the first time in I don't know how many friggin' years, because it was like, oh, it I don't know exactly where it comes from, but I know that I have the thought, working in the restaurant industry, you
Yeah.
you work a lot of late nights.
Yeah.
That's not a surprise to anybody. And
Yeah.
so I've always been kind of a night owl, where
Right.
I like the nighttime. I like being, now it's like 5 to 6, but like hanging out at like 8 p.m., flicking a light on, reading a book. Like that's
Totally.
my me time usually.
Yeah.
But the restaurant industry can rob you of that. You work a lot of late nights where you'll get back at midnight, 11. I My latest night ever was stuck in a dish pit until 3 a.m. That sucked.
Yeah.
I don't wish that on anybody. That's a
Yeah.
rough shake. But I found
What
that when I
what were
was
you
getting off,
what were you actually saying to yourself at 2 a.m.? Did you just like kind of like remold, or were you just like, no, seriously, I just want to
I
leave?
just want to leave.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. I'll comment on that. In the restaurant industry, the hardest position to keep staffed and keep people motivated for is dish. I don't know what it is about that area. Like, I can work a
Oh,
13-hour
you don't
serving
know what it
shift.
is? I'll tell you.
It's awful. It's awful. It's an absolutely terrible position. But it's like, I could work like a 13-hour service shift where I'm running from table to table, back into the kitchen, whatever. But
Yeah.
if I work like a 4-hour dish shift where I'm just
Yeah.
standing in one place, my my body revolts. My
Yeah.
back compresses, my knees hurt.
Yeah.
Like, it's the
Yeah,
most
man.
awful position ever.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that night was just god awful. Where I called
Yeah.
around the corner to my manager at the time. I was like, "Hey, if you want to leave before we open tomorrow, you need to help me. Like, put these dishes away, or I promise you we're gonna be here until like
Yeah.
5."
Right. So
Um,
that is the perk, is that if, like, some of the things you say matter,
oh
like
yeah,
as
oh
a
absolutely.
dishwasher, and
Uh,
like,
it, and it's funny. So something that I've recently been talking to other servers about, a thing
yeah,
that the restaurant industry has really given me, is this sense of self-worth, like, and self-respect, where I
right.
was a pretty, like, I don't know about like underfoot, but I was a very like timid, very shy person when I was younger.
Wow.
And it wasn't really until I got into the restaurant industry and really started, putting my nose to the grindstone, and I had that chip on my shoulder, where if somebody is doing something that is directly counter to what we're trying to accomplish in a restaurant, even if it's a
Yeah.
manager, I
Yeah.
think nothing about
Yeah.
reprimanding them for it. I do it in a courteous way. Like, I'm
Right.
not here throwing F-bombs and telling somebody that they're trash, but I will let them know, hey, the way that you are doing this is not the way that it should be done, and it is completely counterintuitive to what you want to accomplish. And it's a level of that eloquence, but it's also, hey, I'm not letting you step on me,
Yeah.
and I don't know that I had that prior to working in this industry.
No, good for you, man. I think I like, like, I you know I had really good times in restaurants. I was all about like the atmosphere,
Yeah.
like, and then so it was like, I think I was a little too, in the past, maybe like a little too expecting everyone to be happy all the time, which is
That's fair.
ridiculous.
No,
Yeah.
and again, that's a tough line to walk. Like we've
Mm.
seen with just this COVID thing, where in our
Mhm.
everyday life, it's hard to keep the positivity up
Yeah.
sometimes, much less when you've got
Yeah.
long ticket times, you've got hangry guests, you've got
Yeah.
a million other things going on in your life, you know.
Yeah.
But
I
that
actually
that
like,
is
yeah, sorry. I went up to a cafe that was just like takeout only, and
yeah,
and this woman came out, and like I could tell she was like in that groove, you know what I mean? And I
yeah.
was just like, oh man, like I don't know how she achieved that. Like I just like make your order right, Will.
Yeah.
You know, like
Oh man.
very
Yeah,
cool.
no, but it is interesting that you bring up kind of the atmosphere
Mhm.
of service. It was, I
Yeah.
think, one of the things that really sold me on the industry, and it was an experience. It's a very little, nothing experience for most people probably.
Mhm.
But when I first started bartending, one of my
Yeah.
very first bar managers, he had everybody come in, every bartender, everyone who was certified in that restaurant to bartend, come in after hours, and we did a deep clean of the bar.
Yeah.
And you can imagine there was pissing and moaning and people, I don't want to clean the cooler, why don't you clean the cooler, yada
Yeah.
yada yada.
Mhm.
And my manager at the time said, hey guys, I'm not here to make friends, I'm here to make family. And that's why we're
Ah.
all here doing it, because he was right in there with us, scrubbing the floors, scrubbing and this manager of mine is still a good friend of mine. He manages actually, I think he left the restaurant industry. He's in school for architecture right now. But
No
in either
way.
case, he's a really down to earth guy. He's a real good friend of mine. Now that we're allowed to be friends, because corporate being what it is, that whole, you know, conflict of interest is a big no no.
That's a
But he
mature way to look
was,
at it.
yeah.
Totally.
And it's something that's just always stuck with me, where I've never worked I've worked retail, I've worked warehouse, I've done IT. I've never worked in an industry where you really have that sense of camaraderie and familial bond. Even like, I may not agree with all of my other servers or hosts or bartenders, but don't you dare, step to them when I can hear you. Like I will defend them to my last breath,
Mhm.
regardless as to whether or not I like think they're the best person in the world.
Yeah.
And it's just that idea
Cool.
of like a found family that really, really appeals to me about the industry.
Very cool, man. Good for you. Okay, so yeah, all right. So what about your this is actually my own curiosity, really. Like, what about your own kind of hopes for the future? Like, what are you, like you've had this time to really reflect, like what are the things you want to like take forward, and how do you want to affect the future, really?
So I think that's I don't know that that has changed necessarily because of COVID, but it has certainly given me a new perspective with
Mm,
COVID. So again, back to like the origin story thing. I got into the
yeah.
restaurant. I never looked back. That's
Yeah.
not to say I haven't had speed bumps and hurdles along the way. I got into the industry, and like a lot of people, you make some pretty good money for an entry level position. Even
Yeah.
as a busboy, I was getting uh tip share, so I was walking out with easily like 80 to 100 bucks a night,
Hey.
regardless of the night.
Yeah.
So I was doing okay. When I became a server, I was making even more money. I moved out on my own with my girlfriend at the time, and I kind of stagnated. Like I was really content and really just happy to stay where I was at, and
Wow.
I didn't have the drive to advance.
Yeah.
Um, and thankfully, I eventually shook myself, clean of that, where I'm like, hey, get me behind the bar. And it was
Yeah.
the way that I finally got the training as a bartender is actually we had this blind box pour thing where it's a cube on three sides, and then there's an exposed side, and there's like test tube beakers that you can
Yeah.
see from only that one side. And so each one is marked with a different ounce pour, like
Yeah.
half ounce, quarter ounce, half ounce, full ounce, etc. So I was hanging out with one of my bartenders and a visiting manager at the time, and
Yeah.
So they were doing the test pours on each of those and doing the blind box. And they're like, hey, you
Yeah.
want to give it a try? I was like, yeah, let me get in on this.
Oh,
Because
totally.
again, I had a bit of training outside of there. I'd done the techniques of alcohol management training. So I knew my way around a bottle, not least of which because I was a bit of a degenerate growing up. Uh, but so I knocked out each of them within, I think the margin of error is like a quarter ounce, even less than probably an eighth of an ounce one way or another. And I hit each one in the mark. And so
Cool.
my visiting manager looked at that. He was like, all right, pour this out. If you do that again, I'm going to get you trained on the bar.
Yeah.
So I did it again. I,
Nice.
flexed the
Nice.
skills, and the
Nice.
rest is history. So I kind of shook myself loose of that whole, oh, I'm good. I'm good where I'm at. I'm making enough money. I can have a few days off. I can have a day or two off. I can make enough money for rent and utilities, have a little bit of leisure spending, and just, chill.
Right.
So I kept pushing forward there, and I really just, the more that I've
Yeah.
worked in restaurants, the more that I've fallen in love with the industry. So someday, fingers crossed, knock on some wood,
Yeah.
I'd love to be an owner operator. I'd like to create a space, and it kind of goes back to what I was talking about when you mentioned
Mm.
the Instagram, where I want to make sure that I cultivate an accepting community,
Yeah.
because otherwise, what's the point? I could, if I go out of my way to open an establishment, I want to make sure that I'm doing some good with it, not just making money. Because at the end of the day, I could get uh, management training, I can get market training, I can be somebody else's accountant, I can be somebody else's manager, and make comparable money. You can make quite a bit of money in this industry, especially if you don't care who you work for. I have a few hangups in that regard. I'm a very ethical and a very moral person, and I refuse to work for a company that doesn't at least jive with my morality.
Right. Right.
Red Lobster is great. In addition to a handful of things, we donate a lot of our food to homeless shelters. Anything that's coming up on the expiration or the best buy date, we cook, we freeze, and we donate. And I really like that. I don't think
That
anybody
is
should
great.
ever go hungry.
Absolutely.
So seeing
Absolutely.
something like that, whether or not it's corporate America. Obviously, they could be doing that for tax breaks or good faith campaigns or whatever. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to me why something good is being done, just that something good is being done. And that means something to me. I could go to a place that has none of these ethics, none of these morals, and they just screw it. We're maximizing our profits off the money that or off the uh, product that we
Right.
have.
Right.
Cool, and that works for some people, and you can make a lot of money. You can do very, very well for yourself in a lot of these businesses.
Yeah.
uh, but I think that it's very important to think that if you can do something with your means,
Yeah.
then it's important to make sure that we're all pulling together.
Right on,
So
man.
again, I would
Oh, shoot. That's-
a haven, a safe place for people to feel accepted and to have a really good time. If
I
I
think
can't
that's what
accomplish
everybody
that,
wants deep down is to, I think anybody working in a restaurant has, they must have their own designs on a restaurant. But then along with that, like they just want to make, like a great like lounge space where people can be comfortable
yep,
and like have a couple beers and like be okay.
yeah, no,
Like
exactly, man.
really like, yeah,
It's
hopefully
all
leave
about that
there somewhere.
yeah, humanity
Yeah.
that's so intrinsic in the industry.
Right. So what were your dream like, you don't have to give away anything from your like super book or whatever.
No,
Like
no, no
but
worries.
like
No, I'm always happy to talk about stuff.
I'll tell you when I would fantasize about having a restaurant, like one of the fantasies was having a record player if it was like
Yeah.
more of a cafe type place. If it was more of like a whiskey dusky bar type place, poker night.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yep. That
do
would
you
be
have,
cool.
oh, so cool. Do you have thoughts about that?
Yeah, so ideally, I mean, there's a couple of concepts and ideas kicking around in my head, and ultimately what it's going to come down to is a lot of the market research when I'm ready to take that plunge. You know,
Hmm.
what is going to be successful at the time.
Yeah.
You know, what is it, 5 years ago or something like that? Anybody you asked in the industry, their dream would be a B&B, bed and breakfast, because
I didn't know
they
that.
were insanely popular 5, 10 years ago.
Wow.
And they're kind of on the decline. Now,
Wow.
that's not to say you can't open a successful B&B, but it's not at the forefront, you know?
Uh-huh.
Um, so the two main ideas that I generally have for a concept is kind of um, like a board game cafe kind of thing. There's a few of them floating around in the
Cool.
area, but that kind of idea of
I
a
hear you.
lounge space where you can have a poker night, you can play D&D, have a couple of brews with it, kind of marry both of my passions in service and that kind of, nerdy community explosion.
Yeah.
Um, Basic pub and grub, and then
Pub and grub.
open, nice open space where you
Mhm.
can kind of, once we're allowed to gather again, you can gather with,
Yep.
your buddies or a new group of people, and kind of share passions amongst each other. The other idea that I'd had is kind
Uh-huh.
of like a B&B. I know I just mentioned that they're not super profitable anymore.
If I wanted to have a dying business, like, do it.
Yeah,
I mean,
if you want to set up to fail, here's how you do it. But
look, if you have a B&B, fight the good fight. You can come on here and rep your stuff.
for
I'm,
sure.
because
No, I love the idea of B&Bs. It's that little slice of
I love the
home
idea of
away from
like
home.
an inn, like an old
Yeah.
school. Speaking of board game, like when you play a fantasy board game, you read a fantasy book, they go into an inn, they have the best time, even if
Yeah.
it's like even in the fantasy book, if it's like, yeah, it wasn't a great inn, kind of middle of the road, like I don't know if like like these it's weird how much they describe an inn thinking
Yeah.
about it now. They're just
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah, the sheets were kind of scratchy, but the breakfast was good.
Yeah.
Like,
No, exactly. I mean, it's those weird things that come through. But so the idea that had kind of stuck with me, and
uh,
pretty recently, right before the lockdown happened, something that a friend of mine had gotten me into are tiny home YouTube videos.
oh,
And yeah,
okay,
you can fall down that hole real quick.
right,
But the idea that you can create these like uh, modest tiny homes for under 10 grand a pop, you
yeah,
could do something that's like a B&B almost, but
yeah,
these individual tiny home cabins that you rent,
nice,
and then a main house.
right,
So the idea behind it would be you can remain socially distanced in a self-contained, tiny unit while you're there. So you can and this is all that something like that is all about location, because you want
yeah,
good views, you want stuff that people can do solitary or together.
right,
So that would require a lot of location scouting.
yeah.
But I still think there's some potential in the idea. I may
That's a
pull
good
that
one,
thread when
man.
I have the
You heard it here
opportunity.
first. Jeff thought of it first. That's a good one. That's a good one. Definitely.
And so
Um,
just again thinking about like, well, COVID. So if someone wants to remain socially distanced even after we have a handle on this thing, great. But then having kind of a communal lodge where you can come in for that, like, you know, me and my chefs will cook breakfast and sling it out to people and whatnot and take orders. But you can be as self-sustained as you want or as communal as you want in that kind of setting.
I gotta tell you, man, that's a good one. That is pretty darn interesting. So you and I both have like sort of UK heritage
Yep.
background. You're more Irish,
Yep.
and I'm more English,
You're
but
more
somehow we're
English, yeah.
somehow we're friends.
Hey,
uh,
never let it get out that I said this. The English and the Irish are pretty much exactly the same. All that separates us are these imaginary lines. If any Irishman or Welshman asks, I didn't say this. because they will fight you tooth and nail.
I'm actually worried for the first time ever. I'm worried about backlash for this podcast.
That was the line. Hey, feel free to edit that out if you got
you
to.
crossed the line, like the line. But
Oh
like, yeah,
man.
so like, actually, so like my parents hail from Cornwall, which is
Okay.
apparently is a Celtic region. And
Yeah.
I was, it's so weird. I was actually talking about this in the other time capsule episode that we have on deck. Like, so like I kind of get a window into Celtic culture. And actually, at WestCon, there were some cool Celtic festivals, and
Yeah.
like they were good. Like you could play a harp just for like fun. You could
Yeah.
try it out.
Yeah. No. Like
It
we
yeah
have that benefit in the area that you and I live in. The
yeah
Northeast is great for that. We're a
right
stone's throw from Boston, but there's a lot of Irish heritage up there. There's a lot
yeah
of English and Irish influence in the whole of the colonies
yeah
of New
right.
England. So
Very true. And so like so there's some pretty good like pub throwbacks um
yeah,
in this area. But one thing that's kind of a staple in the UK, at least that I think this. It's not
yeah,
official, but like they do like a two name thing. So it's like the lamb and flag, like the
yeah.
horse and folly, like something like that. So if you had to have a pub name with like the double, what would you pick out?
Oof.
Take your
That's a
time.
that's a tough one. Because of our conversation earlier, I almost want to say the pine and the apple, because that combines into pineapple, which is that again, like, welcome in.
That's
But
cool.
if you were in an area that was like heavily forested with pine trees, and
Yeah,
you could
yeah.
have like an orchard on the premises, that might be kind of badass. Serve a bunch of ciders and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was my first beverage, man. Cider,
Yeah, yep.
hard cider.
There are
So,
some good ones.
oh, definitely. Oh man. Oh man, now I'm thinking of opening my own cidery and just living in Maine and just having a great old
Ma-
time.
Maine's a good location, man, especially in the Northeast.
Yeah,
I make the joke with my
I haven't been
bartenders and
there
my servers all the time. They're like, "Hey, when you open your own place, where's it gonna be?" And I said, "Not Connecticut."
yet. Oh,
Uh,
I thought you were gonna be like, hey, if you don't like it, go to Maine.
no, uh,
Just go to
no,
Maine already.
oh man, but no, yeah, I mean, I do
Um,
like I do like the area that I live in. It's a really unique community.
it is nice. It's
But
nice. That's
we
the
have some weird backwards laws when it comes to like tourism and business ownership in Connecticut, and I don't know why
that
we
used to
run it
be
that
a
way.
yeah, that used to be they used to be like on a website or something. It's like
Yep,
weird laws that we have.
yep,
Um, all right. So I love that like I was trying to ask you all these spacey time questions and you had like the most bulletproof, like concrete, like practical answers.
oh
So
man,
well, I'm gonna get you with this one, okay?
all right,
If you could go into the future once and the past once, and then come back to present day. So you're just kind of visiting.
yep,
Um, where would you go?
man, okay,
So I guess it's space and time. So
space and time,
you
yeah.
can also pick the location.
So I've always had a real it's certainly not unique, but I've had a real interest in colonial New England.
Yeah.
And I think it's not least of which because I grew up here.
Hmm.
So I think that my first choice would probably be like uh, to check out the past with the establishment of Salem, or honestly, if I've got this on like a button press that I can just like, all right, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah. Yeah.
love to go to Roanoke and figure out what
Oh.
happened to the lost colony, because we still don't know
Oh.
where the hell what happened to Roanoke. We know where Roanoke was, but all the people just
No way.
poofed. So like, something bad's happening. I don't know, spirits are coming out of the trees, or like the devil himself is like ripping his way out of the earth. I can be like, hey, now I know, I'm gone. uh, for the future, I'm a I guess I'm kind of a self-proclaimed futurist and
Mhm.
transhumanist, in that I really like thinking about where we as a society and we as the human race can kind of reach once
Yeah.
we break through, once we
The
reach
stuff.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
once we breach the wall, like the
Mm.
space wall, where it's like if you can get up there and you can sustain up there, then you're, the universe is our oyster.
Yeah.
In a post scarcity kind of society, I would love to see what that kind of looks like in,
Yeah.
I'd like to go to the point of that advancement of, oh, this is what can be accomplished when we put all our petty bull crap behind us, and we
Yeah.
work towards the betterment of ourselves as a species.
Yeah.
um so
Yep.
that would be, I think, the most interesting thing to me, be that like an international space station up in the stars, or just like that final moment in human history where we, as all societies, we can come together and be like, we need to push forward the betterment of all people. And
Yeah.
I like, if I could stand in that level of it, like in the room when that happens, and just the awe that would be, that would inspire, I think would be really, really awesome.
Yeah, it's nice to imagine that, like, it could be like that, like, just someone's just like, "No, really, this is the meeting, I'm not,"
Yeah,
"We're
yeah, right.
actually gonna
Yeah,
not sh,"
and
yeah,
that's not the way history is done, right? Like, obviously, no one's sitting there like, all right, we're gonna solve all the big problems
"We're
here,
actually
people.
gonna
This
fix
is,
everything."
yeah.
Yeah,
This
but
is it. We're calling this summit just to get all of that badness behind us, and this is the point we're going to make it
yeah,
work. Like, history just kind of happens to us. That we if COVID has taught us anything,
yeah,
the friggin' bullet points of history. Like, there's going to be a whole friggin' history textbook when,
yeah,
in the future of just 2020. That's going to be its own frickin' tome,
yeah, 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 so it's like like, thank goodness there are memes that are going like, "Look, if you're not okay today, don't worry about
Yeah,
it," like,
seriously.
seriously, some of those memes, I was like, thanks.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
but like, yeah,
You
and
need that brevity sometimes, man.
yeah, definitely. And then by the by the same token, like it was also like, like, oh man, like it didn't. I have started viewing like wasted time a little differently, because I was like, oh, like like I was definitely I was bumming, and so
Oh
it's
yeah.
just like it's just like in a way, and especially as, aspiring writers that we are, you're always thinking about time and its effect on your work, how much time you spend on
Yep.
it, can you just write a great novel in 2 weeks? Like, is it
Yeah.
true? Like,
How much time you spend on it, how much
yeah,
time you spend not doing it. That's
not
always the
doing
one
it.
that weighs on me, where I'm sitting there, I'm
Oh,
like,
totally.
you know, I, and it
Mm,
so something that I'm sure you and I have had the conversation before, but something that a
mm,
friend of mine recently brought to my attention. He said writing is more than writing.
mm.
When you think about it, when you're reading a book, you're
Yeah.
writing, because you're exercising those inspirational
Yeah.
and imagination
You're
muscles.
filling in the blanks. Yeah.
When you're Google searching random crap like how fast a Ford motor heats up, how
Mm,
much kickback there is on this specific 9 millimeter, because you're writing a spy noir or something, it
so
that's
cool.
writing. Like, you're not
Yeah.
actively sitting at a typewriter and tacking away, but that the legwork that you're doing is writing. So
Yeah.
it quantifying it in that way really helped me kind of not stop beating myself up for wasted time, but to
Yeah.
understand that wasted time is a more rare instance than I initially thought it would be. It's like, oh,
Right.
just because I didn't get uh all the, like, I didn't get 10,000 words written today, but that's okay because I did this, that, and the other thing that
Yeah.
will help me make up that distance at another point, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Did you ever try a spy novel?
I haven't actually.
Right.
I might pull that thread. A buddy of mine, the same buddy actually, he and I way back in the day had spitballed an idea after watching Spyfall. Yeah, Skyfall.
Skyfall.
Jesus, there it is. There it
How
is.
dare you?
It's been a while.
I'm so
Uh,
offended right now.
where like like, it's one of those, like, I hadn't watched a James Bond movie in however freaking long, and Fleming is a dickbag, so that's
Oh,
just
yeah.
the original author of James Bond. He's a freaking monster. So I try not to give him
Oh,
too much real estate in my brain. But
I didn't know.
Skyfall, like, it was a fun movie. It was something that we
It was
really
fun.
picked up on, and so
Yeah.
we had like spitballed like a concept of kind of a spy drama, but never really pushed that
Yeah.
anywhere. So I might have to revisit that as a project.
There was this one that I was always I actually always thought it would be cool to just take um like a waiter and have him get like tangled up in some crazy mystery,
Yeah.
because like there, like every so often, like you're working at a restaurant, you got to clear the table, and someone's just left like crumpled up notes,
Yeah, oh
you know,
yeah, all the time.
and you're just like, what was happening here?
Yep. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
That would be a really good seed actually for a story like that.
yeah. I always wanted to do something with that.
Because I mean, I've been a server for a while, and I
Hmm.
can tell you, we open those notes. Right, like you see something crumpled up, you go, this isn't the menu or whatever. What is this? It is usually like a grocery list or some random crap like that, but
Yeah,
there's that curiosity. So you open it up and it's like the Goonies treasure map, or it's like somebody's hit list or something, and you're like, uh-oh.
was it ever a poem that sucked?
I haven't found any poems yet. I have found a couple of like cartoons and caricatures that
That's
they
cool.
like
Yeah,
drawn
yeah,
with like
yeah,
pens or the crayons that their kids get or whatever. They'll like be
yeah.
sketching and whatnot. So those are kind of cool. I always
Yeah,
like the idea of like found art where someone like
big
spent a
time.
little bit of time creating this thing and it wasn't super important to them, but you kind of open it and you're like, oh, like, that's actually pretty good, better than
Big
I could do,
time.
you know?
I think that is the best argument for publishing. Actually, I talked to this guy who is who not was he is a rapper, and he was like, he actually mentioned the song. He was like, it's not my favorite song, but a lot of people really like it.
Yeah.
So that's like a good argument for just kind of like, oh, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Um,
absolutely. And I mean that's the nature of uh being a creative, right? Like
yeah.
so I forget the musician that said it in an interview, but it always
Mm,
really stuck with me.
mm,
The interviewer asked him what whatever song meant. And he refused to answer the question. He says, once I've
I heard
created it
about
and
that.
put it into the public eye,
Yeah.
you tell me what it means, because it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what I wanted it to mean. If it
Right.
means something completely different to everyone who listens to it,
Mm,
that's what it means. That it belongs to my audience, not to me.
right.
Um,
Yeah. Right on, man. Yeah, it's a good thing to keep in mind always, and you have to, you learn a lesson, you have to keep rephrasing it, so you
yeah,
keep remembering the lesson. But
yeah.
very cool, man. So I do have a surprise question for you.
Shoot.
I don't want to put you on the spot. I might flatter you a little bit,
Hey.
because I've noticed since even when we were in college, you really seem to have kind of like, you know, you had like an understated respect for women that was not mainstream at the time. Like,
Yeah.
there
Yep.
there was really like, I mean, there was like a lot, like I can't, like, they're like, there's Me Too, and there's like people getting caught, and then there's like dude, when we were in college, people were making millions of dollars with a few cheap women jokes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you know? Like,
So I think ultimately, I think what that comes down to is like I had mentioned when talking about serving alcohol, and
mhm,
weird flex, but I will get there. I think it ultimately comes down to, like I was saying, it's important and it's meaningful to do the right thing. And that includes not just actively doing the right thing, but also in the way that you quantify and you perceive the world. I'm not ashamed to admit I'm a mama's boy. Growing up, I'll tell you right now, as a writer, as an outcast, as a weird dude, weird kid when I was growing up,
yeah,
my mother is probably the sole reason that I am still here to have this conversation with you. So,
yeah,
I love her dearly. I have a younger
mhm,
sister.
mhm,
I have a 2-year-old niece. So
mhm,
my perspective is in such a way that um, I care deeply for all of these, wonderful women in my life, and I feel
yeah,
like that should extend to other women. You can
oh, good timing.
douchebag on the streets who's just looking at women like a conquest, but at the same time, that's somebody's daughter, that's somebody's niece,
Yeah,
and so it's always kind of struck me that, of some abuse
yeah,
at
right,
the hands of significant others
right,
at it growing up. And I didn't like myself for a very long time, and it wasn't, I really don't know how much of it is I was in a relationship with someone who was toxic or was abusive versus how much of it was I wasn't ready to be the person I needed to be to have a functioning relationship. And you have to be,
yeah,
you kind of have to look inward. And I've always been a fan of David Henry Thoreau, where the introspection is very important. So I probably, that should have clicked up here sooner than it did, honestly, for that reason. But
yeah,
it wasn't until I really kind of sought self validation and, again, that self worth that I've worked on over the years, that I think I was even really ready for a meaningful relationship,
totally. Right on, man. Hear it big time. Yeah, you know, I would pull on that thread a little more, but I don't think I'm going to.
Don't
But
know that now's the time. Yeah.
I, I'm proud of you, man, and congratulations that you're. Seems like you've been in a good relationship for a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
cool, cool,
Yeah.
right
I
on.
was said it to my boss not too long ago when he found me on Facebook. He was like, "I assume that's your other half in the picture." I was like, "Yeah, I must
Yeah,
have done something real good in a past life to deserve her. I can't
right.
imagine what that something might have been, but it's a gift horse. I'm not looking for teeth, I don't
Right.
question good fortune anymore."
Very cool, man. Very cool. Oh man, this was too fun. You did a great job, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for
Uh,
having me, dude. Like I said, I was real excited to just kind of be part of the process, and it's always good to reach out and have some human connection during these times.
yeah, yeah, it's been like the majority of my social life. Really. I only started doing it a few weeks ago. So
Yep.
like,
Hey,
yeah, yeah, man. But yeah, right on, man. I'll have to what are people buying anyway at where you're at the Red Lobster?
Red Lobster.
I got
We
my
get a lot of we get a lot of to go. Only
wasn't
been
there
able to get the
some
smaller ones.
wasn't there some that started in the very beginning, right? There was some deal about lobsters. I forgot all about that.
Yeah, no, I forget exactly like how it shook out, or what it really was all about.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have not been selling nearly as many like full body lobsters as we do. We sell a lot of shrimp, and a bunch of like salmon and mahi mahi right now.
What about wines? Because that's always interesting.
Uh, get a Merlot. You do what works well with your flavor palette and your taste buds. Because and again, I am not the most refined palate. I'm not like a super taster or anything. The coffee doesn't help. But when it comes to me, I am 9 times out of 10, I'll take a $20 bottle of wine over a $100 bottle of wine every day. And it's not because of the price. They're way too, so most of them are very bitter. A lot of them are very dry. I need to know that I genuinely think and feel that way. So whatever somebody else has to say of, oh, this is just, you know, white knight syndrome, or this is just saying this for whatever, they can say that, and that, you know what, go for it. If that's how you feel, sling the mud. But it's important to think about it from the perspective of the self, and from your very core, how you feel and how you think about yourself and other people. And that's what makes it valuable to me, you know.
That's a great way to put it, because like especially lately I've been like,
there is no you're right, I'm wrong.
Right.
Unfortunately, it does come down to that needing to look at it critically and figure out what's best for everyone. And I don't know about good, but they'll be okay.
Oh man, awesome, man. Yeah, you did great. You probably should start a podcast. This was super fun.
Hey, I'll keep you notified, and then you can shamelessly plug whatever I start.
I will. I'm shamelessly plugging everyone who wants to come and hang out on me. So yeah,
absolutely, man.
Plug
no, it was great to just catch up with you, much less be part of the time capsule experience, you know.
Yeah, big time. Okay, so I hope that this all saves to my hard drive. It's gonna be massive. But just pick just for a little fluff piece at the end, pick one dream travel destination.
Ooh, I've got to go with Ireland. I've actually I hail from there, but I've actually never been. My great grandfather was from the Emerald Isle, and then immigrated over here. Specifically, I'd love to go to the Giant's Causeway, which is this really cool like highway of stones that are honestly, Google search Giant's Causeway, Ireland. It's a really cool site, and I would love to. I'd love to make that trip. That cannot be an easy thing to uproot and rebuild a life.
Yeah, because if someone moved to New Zealand, you'd know they were going to be fine.
Yeah, if they would let them in New Zealand, like
the cost of real estate.
Solve this problem.
The cost of real estate in New Zealand is going up for some reason.
Yeah, imagine.
Oh man, very cool. So much stuff covered here today. So this is gonna be quite a meal. Might have to break it up into 2 parts, but you did a great job, my man.
Awesome, thank you, dude.
Go. All right, fist bump. All right. You'll have to come back sometime, man. But thanks for coming on.
Definitely, dude. Always happy to be part of it.
All right.
Take it easy, dude.
All right, you too, man. See you around.